From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Monday, October 21. Why bother with democracy? That's the frustrated call from former ACT Chief Minister Kate Carnell after the ACT elected Labor for a 7th term of government. The Greens vote collapsed and independence triumphed. Australia would get to avoid punishing tariffs if Donald Trump is re-elected because of our growing defence relationship with the United States. That's the call from influential Conservative leader Kevin Roberts, the architect of a controversial manifesto called Project 2025. You can read that exclusive story right now at theaustralian.com.au. He was acdc's guitar technician. Then he became a tech titan. Now billionaire Richard White is at the centre of untested allegations about his amorous ways. Today, why this $10 billion man is fighting to stay on the stage. Richard White is a different kind of billionaire.
Now, one of the nation's wealthiest people, Richard White, the former ACDC guitar technician, now boss of software company WiseTech,
He started out as a roadie, a guitar technician in the glory days of Australian rock, and he's now rich enough to buy any instrument he likes.
A cloud guitar used by Prince on his Purple Rain tour. Purple Rain, worth around $500,000.
White is worth around $10 billion. And part of his appeal is that he makes becoming a billionaire sound pretty simple.
I started when I was very young. I was working in my grandparents' business as a dishwasher. And then I worked with my father as a refrigeration mechanic. I became a musician. I repaired musical instruments. I built lighting. Once I started with computers, I started building lighting control systems and electronics, and then technology distribution, and then systems integration.
He's a regular on the speaking circuit, particularly on uni campuses, where he's a passionate advocate for better STEM education to help Australia put itself at the centre of global tech.
And then finally, about 22 years ago, I founded this business. This business was founded on my credit card, which had a credit limit of about $5,000, so it's not that much money. So it's within reach of anybody that wants to put effort in.
He's a larger-than-life character.
Er Johnston is The Australian's associate editor.
He's an older tech billionaire, so you mostly think of them as your Atlassians or your Mark Zuckerbergs. He's been in the same business for 30 years. As we buy more and more things online, we've got to get those things from A to B around the world, and his business is integral to providing the backbone to that. And that, it took a while. It was a bit of a slow burn when it listed on the ASX, but it became prominent, and it was only in the last 4 or 5 years it's really, really exploded.
Richard White grew up in the working-class suburb of Bexley, near Sydney Airport. And when he hit the big time, he bought back his childhood home, as well as a bunch of neighbouring places, and moved back in.
It's real, and it's him. He's very approachable. He's been really big on the skills shortage in Australia. He's got quite a cohort of Ukrainian young tech whizzes that work for him and that have worked for him for many years. But he's also been quite passionate about supporting them the whole way through the past few years. He's got a scholarship. It's called Earn and Learn, and it gives $300,000 or thereabouts to 100 people. So that's quite a large sum to support them through university, looking for engineering. There's a skew towards women to get women into technology. And the people that receive the scholarship also get work at WiseTech. So it's a fair deal. You get your training, you get your high skill job, and you get your uni fees paid.
So that's who Richard White is. And that's why it was a big deal when a story broke that he was caught up in a federal court case with a woman, Linda Rogan, who claims White sought a sexual relationship with her in exchange for investing in her beauty company. Those allegations are before the court and are yet to be tested. White isn't commenting, and it's important to note that he's not accused of doing anything illegal or harming Miss Rogan in any way. She's claiming that after they met to discuss business, they ended up in a sexual relationship. Rogan says White bought her a mansion worth $13 million. And she says she bought $91,000 in furniture to put in it. But then, after White's girlfriend Zena Nasser found out about Rogan's existence, Rogan says she was kicked out of the house. White has lodged a bankruptcy application against Rogan, and she's fighting it. And then another woman, Jenna Riches, came forward to The Australian.
So it started to become more like, I guess, sexual a bit, like over time, and it kind of progressed more and more to us sharing intimate pictures.
Jenna Riches said she approached White over LinkedIn for advice on her business. She says their professional communications turned sexual.
He greeted me with a bunch of flowers, and I looked inside and there was a sex toy in there. So that was quite, I thought, wow, okay, like not very gentlemanly.
Again, this woman says it all went sour when Zena Nasser found out.
I didn't hear from him. I heard from his wife, who told me in a text message not to contact her husband ever again, and they've been together for 4 years and they have a baby together, and that was just completely shocking for me. I guess some people think that they're above everyone else, and yeah, it's very disappointing.
It comes down to somebody in a position of power or with lots of money providing business advice, and then the relationship quickly turned pretty intense and became a sexual relationship. This is where it gets complicated if we stand back a bit. So we spoke at the top about Richard White and his company, WiseTech. He is his company. He's so dominant around his company. He built it up from nothing. He's everywhere around it. He knows everything about it. He's driven it. He just launched a big strategy just before all these allegations emerged. So he's so tied up with this company. Now there's a dilemma for the company itself or the board of the company. Richard White is the CEO, but also happens to be the 33% shareholder. He's the single biggest shareholder of this $44 billion company. He has quite a lot of power there. So if we step back, if this was a bank boss, a retail boss, or a mining boss, usually the board would say, look, this is starting to become a reputational issue. We agree that it's a legal process that needs to be followed through. But if it starts impacting or distracting their performance, we're going to ask you to stand aside to clear the air.
Yeah, in rugby league terms, that would be called a no-fault stand down. So, you've been accused of something, nothing's been proven, but we're going to stand you aside until we get some clarity on this. Mm. Richard White seems to be resisting that. And there's a real question of fairness there, isn't there, Eric, especially when he's not actually being accused of committing a crime.
The reputation is a really big thing in business today. It's the way that investors scrutinise. He owns 33% of the company, but the 67% balance of that is owned by outside investors. And these are big, serious names. These are names like Australian Super. These are names like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund owns it.
Oh, they're back.
Yeah, they're back. There's other investment funds. So big, serious names are in there. So they would be increasingly going, look, this is starting to become a distraction, not only for the company, there's a reputational issue, but also he's becoming distracted. Like when he turns up to work, can he really follow through on the strategy? Can he really do this and that? So this is a way of just saying, look, take some time out. You're not being accused of anything, but we want some air and you want some air around this as well.
Coming up, will Richard White step back from the company he built? Well, I've got you. The Australian's annual Innovators List is out, the ripping stories of our brightest sparks. Check it out by searching Innovators on our website, theaustralian.com.au. We'll be back after this break. Do you think he will stand aside ultimately?
Look, it really depends how the case evolves. He's now made some noises that he's not going anywhere. This is where the tension is starting to build up, though. We understand inside the boardroom, they would prefer that he at least gives the company some oxygen, at least take some time for himself as well, because it's quite important. So he's digging in. He's saying, no, I'm pushing ahead. But What happens if he walked out onto the street and got run over by a Sydney bus tomorrow down in Bexley? What does that mean for the company? So we don't know who's standing there behind him. And it's something that we call in business a key man risk or a key person risk. And if the company is so built up, it's so ingrained, it's so reliant on one single person, when they leave, there is a concern that the company could not collapse, but it just completely is lost, and that really erodes value. So that's what these other 67% shareholders are now asking. How tied up is Richard White with the value of the company? How reliant is the company on him? Is this becoming too risky? Is it becoming too much of a hot potato for me to invest in this company? They're the questions that they're asking.
Er Johnston is the Australian's associate editor. The King and Queen are here, and today Charles and Camilla are off to Canberra for visits to the War Memorial and Parliament. If you're keen on the Royals, you can head to the Parliamentary Forecourt at 2:10 for a chance to shake their hands.